Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessie and I've been working as a barista for a couple years now. I made a video reviewing my DeLonghi Dedica almost a year ago, and in that video I mentioned that I won't be changing a machine anytime soon. However, a lot has happened and I decided to buy a new coffee machine, the Linea Mini, in June 2022, just 3 months before I entered my first coffee competition. A lot of people ask me, why did I get such an expensive coffee machine? One of the biggest reasons being my progression in my career. If you know me personally, you would know that entering coffee competitions has been on my mind for a while. So obviously getting a good setup that allows me to train at home wouldn't be so surprising. Since my YouTube channel has been growing, I also wanted to film more coffee content, including experiments and tutorials, and the Dedica just wasn't the right choice for me anymore. If you only know me from social media, getting a new machine that's 26 times more expensive than the old one can be quite a shock. Note that this is not a sponsored video, so anything I say in this video is my complete honest opinion. The real question is, do you even need a 4,000 pound coffee machine, and can you even taste the difference? In the first part of the video, I'm going to compare the build quality, features, and ease of use between the Linea Mini and the Dedica. In the second part of the video, I'm going to do a taste comparison between the two machines using two different beans. I could be totally wrong, but I'm assuming that most of my viewers don't work in the coffee industry, hence has a different sensory skill than me. So I also invited my friend, who doesn't work in the coffee industry but also drinks coffee occasionally, to join me for the taste comparison. Although all grinders grind coffee beans and all espresso machines make coffee, the important thing you need to know about coffee equipment is that you get what you pay for. Different price ranges are associated with different features and build qualities. I purchased my DeLonghi Dedica back in 2017-18 for £150. With all of the accessories and modifications, I spent around £200. After 5 years, a brand new machine of the same model still sits around the same price. The Marzocco Linea Mini is retailed above £4,000 and may go a little bit more expensive depending on the color and additional upgrades. Unlike the Dedica, which is a semi-automatic machine, the Linea Mini is a completely analog machine. The major difference between the price tag, as I mentioned before, is their build quality. It might be a surprise, but the Dedica has some features I actually prefer over the Linea Mini, which I will mention later in the video. The Dedica is definitely more beginner-friendly, with it being safer to operate with, while the Linea Mini requires the user to have more understanding of coffee making. The Linea Mini has a relatively large footprint and weighs 30 kilograms. Due to its shape and weight, it's actually quite hard for me to lift it and move it around. If you move around quite often or have a relatively small surface area on your counter, the Linea Mini would probably not be the best choice for you. The Dedica has a tiny footprint compared to the Linea Mini and only weighs 4.2 kilograms. I have moved 3 times with it, and keeping the original box and packing it has never been a problem. Let's move on to comparing their builds. The Linea Mini overall just feels more solid. Both the knobs and the paddle feel extremely sturdy. The buttons on the Dedica feel more like a flimsy toy in comparison to the Linea Mini. Because the machine is so light, it can even move slightly when I insert the portafilter. Inside the Linea Mini are 2 boilers, allowing me to pull shots and steam milk at the same time. This is extremely helpful when I want to train for my competition routine or need to make multiple coffees for my friends. The downside is that it does take around 10 to 15 minutes to get it ready to go. The Dedica uses thermal block technology that allows a faster preheating time of around 1 minute. The downside of this is you cannot steam and make coffee at the same time. If you're just making one drink on a daily basis, that shouldn't really be a problem. I personally don't have the equipment to test for thermal stability, but I've found some videos that show the Dedica having a fluctuating temperature while brewing. The Linea Mini has a PID temperature dial on the side, allowing you to have a more precise temperature setting. Each line on the wheel donates a 0.5 Celsius degrees adjustment. The Linea Mini also has an integrated group head, which means the brew boiler sits on top of the group head that helps the machine maintain a consistent temperature throughout the boiler to the group head. The Dedica only has settings for low, medium, high temperatures. I programmed my machine to high since I normally drink light roast coffee. I never really knew the exact temperature I was brewing at, and this is something you want to avoid. As far as I'm aware, there are also no parts attached to the group head to ensure it has a consistent temperature. You can of course dispense some hot water through the group head before brewing, but this means you will not have good thermal stability from the Dedica. Making good coffee requires stability, and thermal stability is what you will lose by purchasing a fairly cheap espresso machine. The Linea Mini generally has more accessories available due to its design. This includes being able to change to a range of different baskets and shower screens. Another plus point is that I can finally fill my basket using my grinder's dosing cup without a spoon. The Linea Mini comes with an accessory kit with multiple sizes of unpressurized baskets, a tamper, a pitcher for you to use. You pretty much don't need anything else, and it can get you started. The Linea Mini is very similar to Marzocco's Linea PB and Classic that are used commercially. This setup essentially allows you to follow coffee recipes as close as those used in cafes. Although having a great machine is important, if you don't have a decent grinder, aren't willing to invest in one, and is buying pre-ground coffee from the supermarket, then the Linea Mini is definitely not for you. Being able to make good coffee comes from having a combination of good equipment, good technique, and fresh beans. Don't expect the Linea Mini to make mind-blowing coffee without investing in other things. It's really not just about having an expensive coffee machine. The Dedica, on the other hand, doesn't have many accessories available on the market. The Dedica comes with pressurized baskets, which suit the people who normally buy pre-ground coffee from supermarkets. If you want to know more about what I thought about the Dedica before I bought my Linea Mini, I made a review video around a year ago, which I will link in the description box. Don't take me the wrong way, the Dedica sure has a few features that I prefer over the Linea Mini. The Dedica has a programmable shot button that can stop the extraction automatically. The Linea Mini uses an EE paddle. The paddle activates a micro switch inside the machine like a simple off and on switch. The machine comes with a factory set pre-brew time of 1 second, which can be changed or programmed using the Marzocco Home app if you have the IoT board installed. You can also program pre-infusion through the app, but your machine has to be plumbed in, which won't be the case for most homeowners. Since the Linea Mini is an analog machine, you will have to manually stop the shot. I had a couple times when I was doing something else and forgot about the paddle and ruined the shot. The Linea Mini uses a rotary pump that goes through a valve to produce 9 bars at the gauge. You can also adjust the pressure easily by opening up the machine and using a few tools. The Dedica claims to have 9 bars of pressure, however, after 5 years of use, the pressure has definitely decreased over time. I could produce the same recipe at the cafe and at home around the 2 to 3 year mark, with the same grind size. After 5 years of use, it's lost plenty of pressure and I had to adjust the grind size quite a bit to match the brew time of the Linea Mini. The Linea Mini has a 3.5 liter steam boiler that also supplies a hot water spout. The steam is very dry and feels pretty much the same as a Linea PB used at cafes. Although it's ideal for me, the strongest steam isn't necessarily the best. It's harder to control for beginners and can be quite intimidating. My model came with the Pro Touch steam wand. I highly recommend you go for this upgrade if it's available. The steam from the Dedica is much weaker and more inconsistent than the Linea Mini, but definitely more beginner friendly. The Dedica originally had an automatic thrower, but I've modified it to a Rancello Silvia steam wand. The original thrower was difficult to use even for me. With the right technique, you can absolutely nail some latte art from this machine. The only part that I disliked about the steam was that you had to purge out quite a lot of water from the steam wand before it was ready to use. This is actually quite common in cheaper espresso machines. The Dedica also takes around 5 times slower to steam the same amount of milk than the Linea Mini. The Linea Mini has a separate spout for hot water dispensed directly from the steam boiler, while the hot water from the Dedica comes out from the steam wand. I don't normally use the hot water function from the machines directly anyways, so I don't find either of them better. The drip tray on the Linea Mini is magnetically secured to the machine. The surface area of the drip tray is quite generous, allowing you to place scales and cups on it. Once the drip tray is removed, you will see the water reservoir inside. The Dedica has a smaller surface area to work with. You won't be able to fit a tall cup under the portafilter with a scale, neither can you fit 2 cups at the same time. The drip tray also has too much metal covering that will cause a big mess if you flush your group head directly on it. Once the Linea Mini needs a refill, the blue light will start flashing. If the water level drops below the required level during the brewing process, the Linea Mini will continue to brew up to 30 seconds. The Dedica isn't that smart. Although it also flashes lights when there is an insufficient level of water supply, if you run out of water mid-shot, it won't be able to pump in extra water for you to continue the extraction. The Linea Mini has a 2-liter water reservoir that is more than enough for you to pump out multiple coffees in one go. Because the water reservoir hides behind the drip tray, I sometimes forget to refill water. The Dedica has a 1.1-liter water tank at the back, and you can easily see how much water is left and refill it before it's too late. The Dedica has an automatic cleaning mode, which you can activate by pressing a few buttons. The Linea Mini also has a back flushing mode, but is only available for models that have the IoT board installed. Since I don't, I need to manually back flush the machine during my weekly maintenance routine. Now that I covered the difference in build quality and features between the two machines, let's move on to the taste test. I'm not a big fan of wasting too much coffee while making videos, so I won't try to follow a very strict recipe. I kept all dosages at 15 grams and stopped the shot when it extracted around 30 to 40 grams of coffee. My Linea Mini was set to 91 degrees Celsius and my Dedica at high temperature. Other than me, my friend who doesn't work as a barista will join in for the taste comparison to provide an outsider's viewpoint. I personally like fruity and funky coffee, so I will be testing out 2 different coffees that are roasted more towards the light to medium side. I'm a big fan of anaerobic natural coffee, so the first lucky guess is this Costa Rican coffee from Crank House Coffee. I've already drank this on my Linea Mini, and it has a super sweet, bright, and kiwi-like taste. It would be interesting to see if the Dedica can bring out the clarity and sweetness of this coffee. For the Linea Mini, I ground the beans at 9 on the niche 0, dosed in 15 grams, extracted for 20 seconds, and stopped it at 36 grams. It ran a bit fast, so it's probably a bit under extracted. I kept this for comparison because it might still taste better than what the Dedica produces. For the Dedica, I ground the beans at 9 as well, dosed in 15 grams, extracted for 30 seconds, and stopped it at 38 grams. Overall, the espresso from the Linea Mini had a lighter body, was very sweet and bright, had notes of kiwi, and is overall an enjoyable cup even though it was extracted at 20 seconds. The espresso from the Dedica had a spiking acidic taste and was much cloudier. Surprisingly, I could still taste some sweetness and the kiwi notes, but the acidity was definitely more overpowering. My friend said the one from the Linea Mini wasn't bitter and was more acidic. She could also drink it as a black coffee. The one from the Dedica was more bitter and she didn't like it at all. Both of us prefer the one brewed by the Linea Mini more than the Dedica. The second coffee is a washed Kenyan from Caravan Coffee Roasters. This is another coffee that will test out how the Dedica can bring out the sweetness from a coffee that is roasted on the lighter side. For the Linea Mini, I ground the beans at 10, dosed in 15 grams, extracted for 28 seconds, and stopped it at 32 grams. For the Dedica, I ground the beans at 10, dosed in 15 grams, extracted for 48 seconds, and stopped it at 27 grams. Obviously, the first shot was over-extracted, so I adjusted my grinder setting and made another shot. For the second shot, I ground the beans at 13, dosed in 15 grams, extracted for 27 seconds, and stopped it at 40 grams. Overall, the espresso from the Linea Mini was super sweet, clean, had a light body, and was a bit fruity. The first shot from the Dedica was very heavy, bitter, and tasted hollow. The second shot was slightly sweeter, but still not clean in terms of texture. It just tasted flat. My friend said the two from the Dedica was just pure bitterness, and the Linea Mini was just slightly better, but she couldn't taste the sweetness at all. The Linea Mini seems to be the winner of the taste comparison, just by comparing two different coffees. We could go on and on about doing taste comparisons, but in the end, is the Linea Mini actually worth £4,000, or should you go for something that's cheaper? Before I made this video, I asked my Instagram followers if they had any questions about these two machines, and I'll answer them right now as a wrap-up of this video. The first question is, which one's better? The magic word for making better coffee is consistency and stability. I would define consistency as anything related to the technique implemented by the user, and stability as the stability of variables produced by the machinery, such as pressure and temperature. The Linea Mini is no doubt a better machine than the Dedica. The Linea Mini has the stability you should be looking for when purchasing an expensive espresso machine. However, if you're a person who only wants a quick coffee to go and doesn't care about bringing out the complexity of light roast coffee, then the Dedica should be your choice. If you're sticking to pre-ground coffee, then the pressurized baskets that come with the Dedica would be perfect for you. Buying the Linea Mini without investing in a good grinder is a waste of money. The second question is, can they handle a light roast coffee? For the Linea Mini, that would be a definite yes. I've been brewing some tasty light roast coffee on it. I should have changed the temperature from high to medium on the Dedica and see how it goes, but in my opinion, it just doesn't handle light roast that well. Throughout the 5 years of using it, I never really had a clean cup out of it. Sure, I can occasionally taste the sweetness and fruity notes from it, but most of the time it just can't bring out the complexity and the brightness of light roast coffee. The third question is, can you make the same coffee from both of them? Unfortunately, the Dedica doesn't have temperature or pressure stability features, so it would be impossible to replicate the same recipe used on the Linea Mini. In other words, I don't think it's possible, and I won't be buying the Linea Mini if the Dedica actually could. If you're someone who can't taste much difference between coffees, then maybe for you they would be the same. The fourth question is, do you miss anything from the Dedica? I have to say I do like espresso machines with buttons. I'm not a big fan of paddles that only function as an on and off switch. It would be cool if I could control the pre-infusion time without installing the IoT board. Functions like auto cleaning mode is available on the Dedica for only £150, but not on the Linea Mini that retails at £4,000. The last question is the Linea Mini actually worth £4,000 for a home setup? I'm going to be completely honest with you, the Linea Mini is actually not my dream machine. My dream machine is the Slayer Espresso 1 group machine that retails around £9,000. At that price, I could purchase a 2 to 3 group machine from Marzocco already. I also considered the Eagle Prima 1, but I just didn't like the hand feel and the design. With all of the 1 group machines available on the market produced by reputable companies, the Linea Mini is actually the cheapest option. I've previously worked on a Linea PB for a year, and that has been so far my favorite machine to work on. So within all of the 1 group machines priced over the £3,000 mark, I do think the Linea Mini is actually worth it. It is also worth it because I'm a frequent espresso drinker and need it for content creation and training purposes. Whether or not a machine is actually worth it really depends on how you use it. Buying a more expensive machine doesn't mean your coffee will taste better. Having a great grinder, using fresh beans, and having the right technique are all keys to producing a solid cup of coffee. I hope you enjoyed my video today. Let me know if you have any more questions about the Linea Mini, as I do plan to do more videos about it. If you're interested in seeing more content from me, please hit the like or subscribe to my channel. Thank you and see you next time!